Hi, my name is Melina and I'm a computer science major at Rutgers and I'm also a female. This is the start of my senior year, so I really wanted to share some things that I wish I knew as a freshman going into computer science. I was definitely so unconfident and unsure of myself back then, and I feel like just knowing a few more things that I know now would have helped me so much more. The first thing I wish I understood as a freshman was to not be ashamed of working hard. I feel like I was in this constant struggle between wanting to do well and seeming like I knew what I was doing, and also not wanting to seem like I was trying too hard to be able to do those things. I feel like a lot of stereotypes came into play here. As a female, I wanted to be able to show that I was just as good as the guys who were dominating this field. I really felt like the underdog just because I was female. And just because I felt that was the case, it had an effect on my work ethic and how well I was able to do in my classes. The other thing with my identity is that I'm also an Asian, and I feel like being Asian, you always have the stereotype of being like the smart, nerdy person or whatever, and all throughout my life I've always felt the need to like play it cool when it came to academics in order to sort of counter that like nerdy stereotype. But both of those factors subconsciously messed with me a lot more than I realized. I was spending a lot more time worrying about how I was going to be perceived rather than actually focused on what I was doing. I feel like I was able to get over this because I happened to make a good set of friends who were really focused on their academics and their career, and that really rubbed off on me and made me feel a lot less ashamed of how much work I had to put in order to do well, and also just focus purely on what I was trying to do and not how I was perceived or what other people thought of me. The second thing that I wish I knew was that people act like they know more than they do. I'm sure this is true in all aspects of life, but I feel like it is especially prevalent in the computer science field. And I've talked to this with a lot of my comp sci friends who are females, and they all kind of feel the same way. While being a specific gender doesn't really make you smarter or dumber, I feel like in society, males just tend to be more confident because that's the way society taught them that they should be, whereas females are taught to not be as confident about anything that they do. So I feel like that kind of rubs off a lot in computer science. I remember my freshman year before class, people would just have regular conversations as we were waiting for the professor, and they would talk about different topics and things about computers, and I felt like I didn't understand any of it. So I felt so behind. I was like, why don't I know this information? Should I know this information? And I felt like a not good enough computer scientist because I didn't spend my free time looking up a bunch of random things about computers and learning how the hardware worked along with the software, and it made me just really not feel good enough or like that I belonged in this major. But in reality, although some people do know what they're talking about, it turns out a lot of people don't actually know what they're talking about. After a couple years of more classes and internships, I came to actually understand the topics that people were talking about before class, and now the past year or so, every time I hear a conversation before class, a couple of times that I've actually been able to understand what they were talking about and I actually understood the concepts, I realized that the conversations they were having were very surface level, and they were just really using big terms that I didn't know freshman year. And on top of that, sometimes when I really listened into these conversations, it turned out that they didn't really know what they were talking about either, because after the understanding that I gained, I was able to see the points that they were making that were actually inaccurate, and that really made me realize that although people seem like they know what they're talking about, that isn't always the case, and you shouldn't let people who seem like they're really smart turn you off from whatever you want to do. I think it's important to acknowledge that there are people smarter than you, but you also have to acknowledge that there are people who know less than you. And instead of focusing on who's smarter than me, I should just focus on what I know and what I can learn in order to make myself a better computer scientist. And my last tip is also really basic, but find your girl squad. I feel like having your girl squad when you feel like the minority is such an important thing. Your girl squad isn't the only people that you're going to talk to. Of course, you should talk to all people in your major and meet as many people as you can, but I feel like having a solid girl squad can really help build your confidence if you're lacking it. For me, having friends in the same classes and going through the same situation as I am helped a lot. Even if we weren't in the same class at the same time, I feel like having someone to talk to made a really big difference in my life. And having female friends specifically in computer science is important because although people can sympathize and empathize with how you feel being a female in computer science, no one is really going to be able to relate as much to you as other females in computer science. And while being a female in computer science is not a defining feature and it doesn't make or break who you are as a computer scientist, it is a really big part of your identity. And there are going to be times where that identity affects you as a person and your work, and having other people to talk to who understand can really help get you out of those situations and build your confidence. Sometimes it just feels good to know that your feelings are validated. Finding my Girl Squad was also not just having friends who happen to be females and studying computer science, it was about having a group of girls that I could trust. The people in my Girl Squad are not going to be people who are going to put me down in order to raise themselves up. And although being in the same field with the same identity can put us in a competitive position with each other, we know that it's not a competition between us, but something that we are going to tackle together as a team. And I feel like having that community that you feel comfortable with and can trust a lot had a really big positive impact on my career. And so those are just a few things that I wish I knew or just understood as a freshman. I think even if I told myself this as a freshman, I probably wouldn't have understood it right away. But in the long run, looking back, I feel like those were the big things that when they finally clicked, they made a really big difference in my life. Hopefully someone out there finds this information useful, but that's all I have to say for now. Bye!